Like many of you, I get a little tired of that age-old pretense debate that people have on articles, YouTube, podcasts, that gear doesn't matter. Folks who repeat that a lot seem to be responding to a fictitious narrative that there is an establishment of gear reviewers that would have us all believe that to have the greatest camera or a certain brand or quality is what qualifies us to be a real photographer. But maybe with one exception, I don't think I've ever heard a single camera reviewer, whether on YouTube, podcasts, or blogs, who actually believes that having the best gear or a certain brand of gear will actually make you a better photographer or somehow qualify you to be a real photographer. I have occasionally seen this sort of attitude reflected in the comments of pundits or people whose inadequacies cause them to lash out and demand that the world conforms to their choices that they have made and the way that they have chosen to spend their money. But it's rare that you have someone who reviews gear online feel that gear somehow equals or establishes legitimacy. And this is the message that people keep sharing. Guys, gear doesn't matter, as if when they shout that and declare it in the comments, it's some sort of major revelation for everybody. Yes, we get it. Gear doesn't matter, or if it does matter, it matters very little and a lot less than the camera operator matters. I think we can all agree that a master writer can be a master writer with a pen or a laptop. Photography is not very different. What I do want to hear more about, though, is what does matter. What really does separate a noob from a novice or a talented from the master. Now, as I remind you in all of my episodes, guys, I'm running some online photography workshops, and after a brief stint that I had a few years ago as a high school photography teacher, it's been really, really good for me to be able to directly interact with photography students again, and I've been thoroughly enjoying that. But there's a lesson I was taught by some newer photographers, both in and out of those workshops recently, that changed the way I think about mastering photography a little bit, or at least reminded me of something that I'd forgotten. Now, there have been books and experts that have shared their opinions and research about how to master an art form. There's that whole 10,000 hours idea. And we all know that there is absolutely no adequate substitute for just sustained, focused, disciplined practice when it comes to mastery, at least not yet. Who knows what the future will hold.
I know Kung Fu.
But the other day I was speaking with a friend of mine. This is a person who considers themselves a novice photographer. They have a nice camera, and they've had that for 5 or 6 years. And they bring it out on occasion, maybe for a family event, a birthday party or whatever, when they want more than just a snapshot. When they have a desire to do something with a higher quality. And they do have a desire to do better and to produce artwork at a higher caliber, but it's not the most important thing in their life. And as we were speaking, my friend made a very interesting comment that really struck me. We were talking about getting in close and really working a scene when it comes to photographing extended family or events, just everyday life, something we both want to do. But he said, I'm not a real photographer, so I feel awkward getting in close and trying different things compositionally and that sort of thing. And that comment really struck me. Here I've been trying to build a course and some content to try to take photographers who know very little or who lack photographic awareness and try to elevate them through increased awareness, increased ability through knowledge of lighting, composition, mastery of the camera, and all of those things that I spent a ton of time crafting. But I was missing one crucial assumption, something that I had forgotten in my own journey of working my way toward mastery, and that is that crucial point at which you begin to define yourself as a photographer. What I'd forgotten is that when you start out, you tell yourself that you're not a photographer. Call it imposter syndrome if you want, but this narrative or idea that we have no right to define ourselves by something we only do occasionally or have not yet mastered is probably the single most important thing keeping us from the very thing we want, which is to gain compositional or artistic mastery. This was also demonstrated by 2 of my workshop participants. In both cases, they submitted a photo for critique of a street style shot of people interacting in a COVID world wearing masks masks or otherwise social distancing. And in both cases, for them, I had the same question. Did you only take one shot? And if so, why? In both cases, their answer was yes. They felt timid. They didn't want to draw attention to themselves. They didn't want to create an awkward encounter. And in both cases, the result was a photo that could have been a lot better. Now, I don't want to discount or gloss over the fact that this is hard. There's a really good reason why we should feel awkward sticking a camera in someone's face on the street, especially in these really weird times. There is that debate as old as compact cameras, which is it okay or legal or ethical to photograph someone who doesn't necessarily want to be photographed in public? And that's a nuanced debate that is well beyond the scope of this video. What I'm more interested in is what is happening in the brain of the photographer during that moment of ambiguity. There is never a more acute moment for that ambiguity than on the street at a time like this. In some ways, it's similar to maybe what it's like for a documentary photographer in a moment of crisis when confronted with human drama. Should I capture this moment and share it with the world when the person I'm photographing is in crisis? The photojournalist has to deal with that question, but the difference is for her, she's completely secure with herself as a photographer, what she is. She has a job to do. The question if she is a real photographer and qualified to be there documenting this history does not occur to her. And so for me, who has long put aside that question for myself, yes, I am a photographer, and yes, if I want to shoot something, I'll do what it takes to get that shot, and I won't question who I am. Existential questions do not factor into that process. So for me as an educator, this was a huge and important reminder. In a new photographer's journey, at some point, they decide for themselves that they are a photographer. And this changes everything. And I want to emphasize that this is independent of skills. Certainly, if you know your camera backward, forward, left, and right, if you have a deep understanding of composition and aesthetics in theory and in practice, all of that will certainly lend itself for you to feeling like, yes, you are a photographer in every sense of the word. But what I see are photographers with varying skill, talent, knowledge, and ability, and their own sense of identity as a photographer is not correlated universally, meaning everyone arrives at that level of confidence at different stages of their journey, and that is independent of skill. But once you make that decision, and it is a decision, no one is going to hand you a certificate of legitimacy. There isn't a number of Instagram followers or a photo award you have to get that gives that to you. It's something you step into. But once you make that decision and declare with confidence, yes, I am a photographer, all situations change. In a family setting, if you define yourself as the family photographer, you walking around and getting the best shot and working the scene a little bit, that'll come naturally to you, and others will also feel that it's more natural, especially if they're rewarded with shots at the other end of that process. And on the street, in that setting, if you decided that you are a street photographer and you want to document something, if you have confidence in who you are and what you want to capture, and above all, if your intent is good, if you wish to honor people that you choose to photograph rather than taking advantage of them, your whole posture will change. It will be reflected in your whole approach to the scene. Your demeanor will brighten. Your confidence will shine through. Your actions will be less furtive because you know that what you're doing isn't wrong or that you're doing it for nefarious reasons. You won't be getting away with something. And as a result, people will tend to trust you more, and more importantly, your photos will be stronger. You'll take your time. You may take several shots, not just one frantic shot from the hip. Again, whether you believe it's ethical or not to do street photography is beside the point. I'm only using that to illustrate what I'm talking about. The same could be said for a wedding scenario. The first time you're asked to photograph a wedding, likely it will be as a second shooter for a friend or a loved one. And in those scenarios, a lot of times you'll feel some imposter syndrome. Now, I would hope that if you signed yourself up to take someone's wedding photos, potentially the most important day in their life, that you're coming equipped with the skills necessary to do so adequately. But at the point at which you're there, that's behind you. It doesn't matter anymore. It will not serve you. It will not serve the client to be hesitant, to doubt yourself, to be timid with your subjects, to be apologetic. No, you're the photographer. You have a job to do. You got to capture the absolute best shots that you're able within your knowledge, within your skill set. And to do that, you need to move your body. You need to take many shots. You need to act decisively. You need to trust your instincts. And that narrative that you'll be tempted to tell yourself, this idea that everyone is looking at you like, who is this dude that thinks they're some sort of Bresson? To that internal narrative, the answer is yes. Right now, I am the Bresson for this situation. I'm the best the family that I'm photographing has, and I'm a real photographer. Now, you will still fail occasionally. We all do, and you'll have keepers and you'll have epic fails, but save the judgment for the edit room. Earlier, I referenced writers. Writers have this saying, write with abandon, edit without mercy. As a photographer, that could be your mantra as well. At the event, with your family, on the street, wherever you're doing photography, when that internal voice tells you that you're a poser, a wannabe, a fake, tell those voices that yes, I am assuming a role here because I do want to be a photographer. So I will fake it. I will play that role. I'll assume that title, and I'll act as the only photographer that this environment currently has, and probably the best one that this environment currently has, and I'll just own it. And I'm gonna get the absolute best darn photos I'm able to. Ignore that narrative. At some point, especially when your skills and mastery really start to come together, you'll start to really believe that. Anyway, thanks for listening. Do good with your cameras. We'll talk to you again real soon.